Maybe I was born lazy. Maybe I just need to try harder. Despite your best efforts, another deadline is slipping by, and a familiar wave of guilt and shame rolls in. Some of us double down, hoping that shame will help us do better next time, creating this ever-worsening cycle. But couldn't there be a better organizing force? Welcome to the Rhythms of Focus podcast for wandering minds who are tired of feeling that they have to force themselves to make things happen. Maybe know that when things line up well, that tendency to wander actually becomes a powerful wave of focus. I'm Dr. Kourosh Dini, fellow wandering mind. It wasn't that long ago that I struggled to make things happen, whether it was to remember when to pay a bill, do things over time, or look at a list without feeling repulsed. Fast forward through years of study and practice, I can now not only deal with the world, I can be creative, playful, and engage in the ways that make sense to me. I can be a doctor, musician, father, still play games in the evenings. I've created this podcast to share these ideas so you can do the same, hopefully with a lot less of the troubles I needed to go through to get here. Whether you have ADHD, deal with anxiety, or just suffer from a powerfully creative spirit, I invite you to join me in this weekly podcast to start finding your own way to a calmer, more intuitive space. Please note, I'm not functioning as your doctor, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, therapist, or otherwise. This is here for education, if not entertainment, and I do hope you enjoy it. As wandering minds, we often consider our troubles moral in nature. Maybe we were somehow born lazy. If we could only muster more willpower, discipline, we'd be fine. Holding things in mind harder, trying one list after the next, creating this sea of Post-it notes, blaring reminders, and a barely balanced set of files on the desktop, all have this way of collapsing into piles of incomplete projects and missed opportunities, each resonating more shame. Just trying harder is like someone who's nearsighted is trying to see better by wanting to. It doesn't work and often leaves us feeling worse, like squinting until we get headaches. Often the world around us doesn't recognize this sense we have of this magnified now that I described earlier in this series. They never experience what that could possibly mean, this magnified now. And they view these collisions and misplacements that we get into as motivationally based. The conclusion is that we are morally flawed. We hear some version of, if you really cared, you wouldn't forget. We hear that from others, and as we internalize it, we hear it from ourselves. And so once again, we muster up the courage and try again. With every error, we yell louder, not only through self-recrimination, but in the seas of sticky notes and the reminders and how we write our tasks and where we write them and demands in all caps and bold and saying, do homework, write the report, do the thing. As well as the angry questions that follow, like, why can't you just do it? Maybe if we yelled at ourselves enough, that'll fix the problem. In other words, we leverage shame. The trouble is, it can work. For example, let's say you miss an appointment. Well, next week I shouldn't miss that appointment because I'm going to feel bad enough to remember. But let's say you miss that one. Well, now I'm just going to feel worse, and that'll do it. And now if it works, well, you've just reinforced that you just needed to feel bad enough. The trouble is that leveraging shame beyond the major pain it inflicts on ourselves injures us further. We now not only have feelings of guilt and shame, but also this constant worry of gathering more simply by trying. The world becomes increasingly painful and dangerous. All of these attacks and self-recriminations build over time. At a gut level, we regularly receive this message that the world is a place that we're incapable of navigating, and we confirm this for ourselves. And it must then, we conclude, stem from this moral failing. What's missing is the central notion that we can organize based on having things genuinely off of our mind. That we can use this lack of frustration, irritation, shame, and the rest as being the principle around which we organize ourselves. If we develop these methods of putting things that we want to be reminded of, when and where they would be useful, that they would stay out of our way when we don't need them, that we'd be ready to engage them when we reach out for them. Wouldn't that be a better way of managing things? Of course, this is much more easier said than done, but this is the practice of caring for our future selves. If, for example, you knew that an appointment reminder would appear, clear of other distractions, with enough time to wrap up whatever you were doing, showed up, that it also gave you directions to wherever it is that you wanted to go, that it told you where all the things are that you needed. And if you had practiced that enough, that you felt that that happened over and over, you're developing a trust between your present and future and past self. If that were the case, wouldn't it be easier to consciously let things go? Wouldn't it be easier to not shame yourself into doing these things? Now, there are a number of skills here to practice. Being able to wrap something up, being able to guide that momentum that you're in into something that you would hope you'd be able to return to. Clearing space to have reliable reminders and the like. Yes, there are a number of skills to practice, but they are learnable. If you take each one and begin to practice each one, eventually you have this group of things that come together and support you. So for those of you who are caught in the cycle, know you're not alone, and that there are gentler, more effective ways of guiding your focus. As this series continues, I hope to continue my argument of how a visit-based system can become this nidus for change. It's not the entirety, but it is a solid foundation. As you practice, really experience the sense that you can put things where you want them to show up, to remind you and stay out of the way otherwise. You start to develop that trust. And maybe then you can start shedding those more shaming methods. Every time I sit to play a piece of music that I've composed, I'll play it differently than I did before. I quickly get bored when a piece stays the same. I suppose there's some lesson of life always being about change in there, as when a piece stops changing, I stop playing it. This piece, called Folktale, is one of my older pieces, starting maybe 30 years ago or so, and it's had quite a while to evolve. The piece is written in F minor. It's mostly in 3/4 time, sort of waltz time. And being in a minor key, I know a lot of times we equate a sort of sadness to it. But I really wonder if we're confusing that with contemplation, with reflection. Why does it always have to be sad? Why not thoughtful? Maybe that's just me. In any case, I hope you enjoy it. Before wrapping up here, I'd like to invite you to join my newsletter called The Weekly Wind Down, where I share more ideas about wandering minds and developing rhythms of focus. Head on over to rhythmsoffocus.com to sign up. It's free, and it's a great way to continue exploring these ideas between episodes.